Now, as everyone knows, I don't like to do math in public, let alone calendar math. We used to have a whole person on our team back when we were together who would do. They were the calendar math expert, and I think. But I was looking at some emails that I got, and on November 30th, 2022. So that's coming up on 2 years ago, 1.5, let's say, whatever. That's when someone came up to my door and they knocked. And of course, they started speaking in Netherlands. And I was like, sorry. And then they're like, oh. And it was, they had a jacket that said T-Mobile on it, which was the brand at the time. And I think he had a tablet. So I think, of course, it was an Android tablet. You know, people who come to your door never have an iPad. It's always an Android device. And he told me that fiber optic was coming to the neighborhood and that I could sign up with T-Mobile fiber optic, and it was just going to be 35 euros a month. And he was like, it's going to be a gigabit. And because I work with you, Brandon, I knew to ask, is it symmetric?
Yep.
And he paused for a little bit, and he was like, yes. And I was like, same upload, same download. He's like, yes. It's like, all right. And I was like, yeah, I want that. And I just, cut him off right away. And then I filled out some paperwork, and that was November 30th, 2022. And then it looks like, according to my records, once again, now I want to note that I didn't use Google Gemini to find this out, because I have done several cases of having Google Gemini search my Gmail, and it's as Immortum Joe would say, mediocre. It does not work out well. In fact, I canceled my Google Gemini account.
Sad for them.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when it can tell me, if anyone's listening, if I can go into Google Gemini and I can say, tell me what tell me who I emailed the most in the 2000s, and it doesn't tell me email that I got last week, then I think I'll be interested in it again. I'll see. Although I could tell you a good story about how I used the email summarizer on an email Kim sent, but I think I'll skip that. That shouldn't be on the record. Anyways, so as of June 26, 2024, the fiber optic is now working in my house. The Odyssey is over, and I verified it. I have, of course, it's not like 1.0 gigamadoodles. It's like 976 sometimes, and 982 at other times, whatever. But the Brandon Witcher approved wired connection is now in there. So I'm up and down on the
podcasting, low latency.
Now I want to. Now they since renamed themselves. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Odio, O-D-I-O, not to be confused with the Twitter service. But for some reason, T-Mobile thought to rename themselves, their fiber thing, to this, which I'm sure they have reasons. I hear that the Netherlands football team doesn't like the German football team, and that's the only team they don't like. So maybe the T-Mobile people are like, this brand is not going to work.
It's not working. We need to switch it up.
So whatever. But now I want to be clear. I did finally sign up for an account here. It's not 35 euros for eternity. That's just an 8-month special.
Oh, the intro rate you're getting.
So for 8 months, and then I think it goes up to either 40 or 45 euros. Such a small amount, I don't fucking care. It could be 50 euros and I would have signed up instantly. But now, Brandon, I'm living the fiber dream.
Okay, a couple of questions. How was the install inside the house? Did they have to drag the little tiny fiber cable in and give you a little fiber
did modem? I not tell that story? Now this is a whole story right
was
here.
Was there some decorating concerns? Were the other people in the house that were upset about I don't want to have this in such and such in my house, right?
For such interior concerns, I'm extremely well trained. I'm a mature, certified person when it comes to making interior decisions correctly. However, what you're going over was a 3-part process, and as always, the problem was from the curb to the door. That's where the issues were, and so we had someone came over, a team of 2 people, very nice people, and they kind of walked up our sidewalk here, and they kind of assessed the situation. They asked a few questions, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's we're on the how do you say, the premier etage? In American words, we're on the 2nd story, the ground floor." And then they kind of assessed the situation. He was like, "I'm gonna have to come back."
Okay.
Because basically, I think the situation is, and I think this is very common, of course, for Dutch and other architectures is, you got to remember the Netherlands is built on a swamp, basically. And so I think underneath our row house, there's basically a huge concrete box that goes down. And then there's maybe like, I'm going to say a yard, a little under a meter. It goes down to the ground underneath the ground floor. But the problem was this guy needed to be able to like drill through the concrete box.
Oh, okay.
And then the other problem was he needed to mess up the very nicely manicured yard that our downstairs neighbor owns. And he was like, he didn't want, so he needed to come back. So he came back a few days later and it was great. It was the same person. And you could see the twinkle in his eye. He was like, I figured it out.
He's like, I got this. That's what I like.
And so, yeah. He drilled through there. You drag it through there's probably some name for this, but like he dragged it through the it's not a basement. You must know this from your part of the world,
right?
Yeah, the crawl space. Yeah.
Right.
So he drills through there. He pulls up the cable, and then he has to do a little bit more drilling, and then I'm pointing at it, but he puts it in the corner over there where no one can see. Perfectly fine. And then you got a box, and then he's like, "All right, my job's done. Accountability sync out."
Yeah, he's like, fiber works to here, and you're like, great, that still doesn't, right?
But I want to emphasize him and his guy did a great job.
Okay, so they got it in, right? And then is it your turn, or is it another installer?
And then I don't know if this is a few days, a few weeks. I lost track of time. A box comes. I've recycled it since from Odio, and I'm a busy person. I don't even open it. It's just, I know it's a box. It's my gear. Am I able to go do it? I'm not sure. And I kind of forget about it. But then I get an email, and this is a very Dutch thing to do. I guess this happens in the States too with these kind of things, is I get emailed the time of my appointment to have the installer come put it in. And of course I could change it. But then, the installer comes, he opens up the box, he drills a little hole to put another box on. And he puts a Zyxel modem thing on, and he's all good to go. We test out the wireless speed. He's like, "Oh, do you have another wireless thing on? Because it wasn't so good." So I turned that other wireless thing off. We do the speed test again. Everything's fine, and then he's out, and that's it.
and then he turns it over to you. You now have the home networking responsibilities.
Yeah, and
internet cables.
And then I could go on about the story of like how I reconcile this with my existing wireless network that everything is tuned to, and switching things over and blah, blah, blah. And that I haven't shut down my other things. So I've actually got 2 internet things coming in, but whatever. It's all, everything's working great. The internet speed is good.
All right. So in the end, what did you upgrade from? What was your previous?
I think, it was fake gigabit, I think is what I upgraded from, where, you would just be getting like 500 or 600 or something. I don't really even know what it was, but definitely wasn't.
Have you noticed, now that you've been watching, have you noticed anything, better podcasting, better resolution, anything is good?
Not really. It's hard to tell, because I think the issue is that I need a better Wi-Fi network, because my Wi-Fi network, the access point now. Yeah, because it is rated to be gigabit, but the access points are like old, and for years they've been like flaky. Like it has that thing that us computer people hate, where you're just like, I think it's given up. And it just like stops working.
You have to decide. So this is like the next phase. The next phase is now you got to upgrade all your wireless gear to see, which is a whole nother like. And then of course, like, do you use the consumer stuff, or do you get like some step up to the
But I think I'm gonna ride it out for a few more years with the things I have.
That's fine. I'm still riding out. I still use the Apple AirPorts for my wireless. Love it. I know it's so old.
But I think a good test will be, it's going to be over the wireless, because I haven't taken Ethernet to my TV. Tonight, Kim wants to stay up till 9:00, which I was like, what do you mean stay up? And she was like, I mean, come on, that's staying up. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. That is staying up. That's late. But there's apparently a very anticipated, I'll say for our American audience, European football match tonight. I think the Euro Cup is going on.
Okay, well let's get into it.
Is that FIFA? Is that what that is?
Okay, we'll do a little quiz. We did a little quiz with Matt last week. Okay, we'll just real time. What tournament? And we'll just use the American English thing, and I'll be very generous in grading this out. What tournament are you going to be watching tonight?
I think this is the European Cup Championship.
All right, close enough. The Euros, which is, of course, right. It's all the soccer teams or football for ours, basically played in a big tournament. So the game that your wife wants to see tonight, who's playing in it?
I think. Well, I know it's Netherlands.
I'll let you know it's a semifinal, so it means these two teams have done very well.
Yeah,
and there are also two teams in Europe. What would the two teams be?
I think it's Netherlands, England.
Correct.
Or is that on Sunday? Okay.
No, that's correct. That's today, July 10th, as we're watching this. And then finally, Coté, can you name the colors of the teams? So one is the Netherlands, one is England. You know what? I'll make it even better for you. Can you name either home color for either team? I'll accept either one. I can name the Dutch one a lot, right?
Of course. The Netherlands is orange. I don't know what their away color is, if that's a thing. And
most of the time it's white. Most of the teams will wear white on away. Although it's not.
Oh, okay. And then is England blue or red? I don't actually know. Red seems Spanish.
You gotta pick. You gotta pick between one. You can't be like, is it?
I'm going for blue.
It's red. They would, at least that's the color.
Red.
Although they do, I mean, because the flag is white and red. So
yeah.
So well, good. Well, I guess. Well, who? I mean, is it? Do I even need to ask? Who will? I guess I should ask you this question. Will you actually be cheering for anyone? Not who will you be cheering for? Will you actually be cheering for anyone?
I think I hadn't considered that. Because we have a British friend and Kim's been taunting her. She lives here and she's like, "Ooh, how are you going to resolve this problem? You're going to be conflicted. Who are you going to root for?" Because she's one of the Brexit refugees. So we'll see where her loyalties lie.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm going to be cheering myself if I can understand what the fuck is going on in this game.
I think it's easy. Soccer's like. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. It's
what I mean is beyond like they're trying to get the ball in that goal and they're trying to steal the ball. But I figure, I think especially. Listen, I'm not a sports person, so I don't mean to be insulting. I'm talking about how I make up for my deficiencies. I think especially as something that is as slow and plodding as long as soccer or football. Like, to keep me interested, I would want to be looking for like the little hacks and the clever things and like the stuff going on right now. In comparison, like when I watch American football, I'm like, there's a lot of shit going on here, and I don't know what's happening. Right? Like you got all these players doing this. This guy's running this way. This other guy's running that way.
It's too much. There's just too much. Right.
Maybe the quarterback actually handed a ball to someone, but he's pretending like he's throwing it. It's just like, whoa. And then why are they kicking the ball all of a sudden? I don't understand. Right. Whereas like football, as it were, is just like seems pretty straightforward. Right. And so it's easy for me to kind of fall asleep and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, ball got over there.
That happened. So
anyway.
Right. Well, Coté, there's nothing I would like more than for you to next week to send a picture you in one of those bright orange shirts that all the Dutch wear, and you to be like in the downtown Amsterdam area where they're all singing and going crazy.
Of course.
I would love to see that. If anyone is in the area and they see Coté in the full-on orange jumper, as they would say, or kit, please send us a photo. That would be fantastic software to find.
As the Dutch would say, the Ajax people, which is I wonder how they chose that name. But yeah, I'll definitely tell Kim to look out for that. We have a Dalvin shirt that's orange, but it barely. Well, it's pretty large on my 2.5-year-old, so maybe I'll try to fit into that.
All right, well done, Coté. Well done. All right, for all those streaming this week, when you hear the podcast, you'll hear an ad for our friends at API Layer. So everyone, if you're looking for some APIs, go see our friends at API Layer. All right, Coté, we can pick up wherever you want.
All right, let me see. Now, I didn't read all of this internet report. Oh, I forgot we have this nice like break where we can discuss the agenda.
Yeah, we have a little. You can figure out what you want to talk about next. Well, you can just pick for whatever you want. We got this Mary Meeker thing.
How long do you have?
I've got time.
Okay,
as long as it's not
I'll wrap it up when I need to. Then. All right. Well, as much as we like to decry following hypey things, I think the generative AI is the gift that keeps on giving. If you have to come up with something to talk about every week, let alone every day. Now, there have been some signs of cracks in the hype or sliding down the slope into the trough of disillusionment. I think even one of the greats out there, Slides Benedict, he recently had a post where I think he was basically like, he actually was very concise. It wasn't his usual 10,000 word blog post, but he was basically like, I think it's starting to crack. I didn't ask ChatGPT to summarize it, but I think that's what it would be. He had some good charts in there. He had a great update to his Goldman Sachs CIO's plans for public cloud migration versus the reality, which I think now goes up to maybe even June of 24, or maybe it was January 24. I'm pigeonholing in here a little bit, but if he's listening, he doesn't have clickable citations, and I tried searching for Goldman Sachs CIO survey, doesn't exist. So I know he's pulling from something, but I would like a clickable citation so I can go catalog that stuff on my own. Not that I disbelieve it.
Yeah,
you want to be knows I love
go
surveys.
to the source, though, right? Yes, always go to the source.
Now, speaking of, I think the before there was Slides Benedict, there was Slides Meeker. I don't know.
Mary Meeker, the one who invented it all, right? I mean,
yes. The mother of slides, and I think she's come out with something. I think she did it. You sent this link to me, and it actually took me about 15 minutes to figure out how to get the slides, because they were doing one of those fancy, like, multi-dimensional choose your own adventure sort of go through their library science information architecture thing, and I kept clicking on it, and it kept showing me the same thing. I was trying to look at the AI and universities thing. And so I would click on it, and then it would go back to this table of contents where I was clicking on AI and universities things, which, now that I think of it, that might have been a lead qualification test for, gathering up LPs for their new fund or something.
Can you figure out how to download the PDF?
But then I did see that there was a down arrow that I clicked on, and there was a PDF exported from MS Word Office 365. Always look at the information panel in preview. It's always fun to see what's in there. And I think that's what I was supposed to read. Yep. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. It was a good example of the full cycle on, my theory that a good corporate presentation is a Word document accidentally printed in landscape. Because I feel like they started with the Word document accidentally printed in landscape, and then they converted it back to a Word document and listed it in there, printed it in portrait with some pictures of the slides in it, which I enjoyed. And okay, so there's the setup. I think it's, as with all this stuff, it's fun to read. And I listened to last week's episode and several of the other episodes where I wasn't around. And I think you've invented a new format, Brandon, which is, what do we think about this slide? where you just kind of you kind of go through and you sort of ask, like, do we think this is true? Do we like it? So I think we're well set up for this with this slide deck, or sorry, this Word document slide deck, because there are a lot of claims in there, a lot of just set your pants on fire because there's a new style coming in, sort of thing. Don't even waste time taking them off first when it comes to AI. And oddly enough, very narrowly, universities and education.
What did we start with? I mean, and I think, if you kind of go through this report, I think it's always first, like this, let's just start with the first assumption. The first one they kind of put forward here is that, quote, internet offerings have materially altered learning/education over the past quarter century. AI will do the same, but faster and bigger. So I think we just, like, to me, like, just stop there for a minute. It's like, has the internet fundamentally altered learning in the last, whatever, 2 decades? Because I guess my thinking is that, like, we're both parents, right? So we're, you've got 3, so you've got kind of like, different kids in different grade levels. They're slightly different generations. I've got one kind of going through middle school now, and of course we all have friends, and Matt Ray included, that's gone through. And it's like, while certainly, like, technology is used in schools much more than it was, like, say, when we went to school, I don't feel like it's fundamentally altered anything. Like, as far as,
Yes.
still watching the kids like do the homework, especially elementary school. There's still like a lot of focus on pen and paper to like learn the basics. And then, as they get into middle school, they start to do some other things. But both the expectations of parents and how kids are learning, while I would say it's augmented, like fundamentally changing it isn't. Like kids are still going to traditional schools. We had the COVID experience. I think most parents and to some degree students felt like, hey, in-person learning was better, right? It wasn't like, oh, we're all learning online, let's keep it that way. If anything, it was the opposite, right? It was like, we got to get
Yeah,
this
yeah,
back
yeah.
to school. So I don't know, like just her whole opening assumption is like, I don't feel like things have fundamentally changed. But at the same time, I don't want to discount it. I mean, yes, technology has made it a little bit easier to learn stuff, and it's been a nice compliment, but not a fundamental change. What have you seen?
Yeah, you see, this is great because when I wouldn't have even thought about this, but I think I wouldn't. It's overstating it to say the whole train of thought or the whole train of PDF like hinges on this, but it does play a weighty thing in it, which is to say, uh, how much effect can technology have on pedantry? Is that the right word, or did I say the bad one? On education, and I think your I think I agree with your observation about the transformative nature of the internet on education. And I'm a little leery because I haven't so much been educated in a structured system in the post-internet era. Although we did have a little bit of internet, but it wasn't really pervasively used. But then observing my kids, I like that word you used, augmented. I think what the internet has done is augmented the way education is done. It hasn't really like fundamentally changed it, right? Like the structure is still the same. What you're doing is the same. Like the only thing that I could see is very different is one, unlike again, more or less when we were going through education, a little different in college or university, as the red-kitted people would say. I think there is like Google and Wikipedia, which I feel like would have made things different and easier in my education because in college, and I'm not meaning this to sound like an old person thing, but in college, like the reference section of the, as we called it at UT, the UGL, that was my Wikipedia. I would spend a lot of time there just like reading through the reference books. But if I could have done that online at the breadth and sometimes depth of Wikipedia, that would have been a lot more efficient. However, I would have still been doing the same thing. And so I think the only other dramatic thing that seems different than me is like kids use PowerPoint all the time.
Right.
Like we would give presentations, but we never had slides. Like at best, you would get one of those what do they even call them? Poster boards. You get one of those boards that's got foam so it stays firm, and you would make maybe like a 4-up,
like an
and
exhibit. You bring in some exhibits for your
and
presentation.
you could have a triptych of a science project where you
Right.
had like the things that folded, but like you would never make slides. You would only ever write papers, right? Whereas nowadays, I don't know how, well, both of our kids are in an IB program, so whatever. But, also your lady, she works in the education industry. So
Yeah.
maybe she sees this. But like, I feel like slides are the primary medium for educational auditing nowadays. Like my kids write papers, but they deliver a shit ton more slides than papers. And
Right.
so that seems like a big change. Has that changed the fundamental nature of education? No. So I think that kicks us off on like there's differences, but I don't think it's monumental. And I would make a comparison to the kind of hopes and dreams we would have about whatever you want to call it, computers in healthcare. Like there probably are a lot of benefits and efficiencies that computers in healthcare have brought that we ignore. I mean, definitely in medical equipment, like MRI machines and all of that kind of stuff, and just being able to do, imagery and whatever. But like, it seems like, country by country, things are different, but it seems like it's kind of the same as it was in 1975. Like, there's not really that much of a difference in how basic healthcare is done. Again, there's research, there's medical equipment. The technology maybe is different, but how it's executed seems the same. And it feels kind of like that in education. So all of that is to say, whatever this AI stuff is going to do is going to have to be bonkers. Yeah. It's got to move beyond augmentation and just be something totally crazy.
Otherwise, yeah, and I think that you were hitting on there, and I think, you know, as you're we're talking, I was thinking to myself, it's a lot like just IT in general. It's just sort of like efficiency and automation. Like we've seen so many progressions, whether it's banking and things like that, but fundamentally banking, like it's still core the same. You're still like writing, still transferring money, paying bills, and I think the same thing. It's like, yeah, research can be done just at so much faster now, right? Than, like, to your point, like you don't have to go read the books and like check it out and make copies, whatever. You just look it up online, right? And like the testing, right? There's still a lot of testing, but now that can be done online, right? So that way, like people can take a test, they can take a diagnostic, get their results instantaneously, you know, that can, you know, quickly. So all of those things are true. But I always think it's like, and the reason I kind of pick this stuff out is like the bond report, I guess, is where it comes from. And obviously Mary Meeker, it's like there are, you know, they're always kind of pitching a perspective of investment, right? So it's like, this is like an investment thesis, right? So there is always like some bias of like, oh, look at all this change that's happened before. And that's sort of set up, look about what everything's about to happen. And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, you know, as we kind of look at this, let's first challenge you on that. And it's like, yeah, there's been a lot of incremental stuff, but like, I would say something like, you know, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, you could have, maybe someone could say it's like, well, every kid has an individual learning path, right? And they literally go every day and things are done online. Yes. And the system is dynamically adjusting to where they are in the curriculum, right? And they don't, that way no kid has to be, there is no sense of behind or ahead. You're just doing your level, right? And like, that's certainly not the case today, right? Kids are still grouped into classes, and like, maybe there's a little bit of differentiation, but like the group generally moves at the same level, right? So none of that has like happened. Like maybe now you could say, and maybe this is where they're going, maybe AI is fundamentally going to change that, but it hasn't happened. And the other thing I thought was calling out here is the motivations of parents and students, to me, has not changed in our lifetime. Like kids and parents, for the most part, are still trying to pursue and get into like the same types of elite universities, right? Like it is still seen, with all of the talk about like the problems of higher education, most people are still aspiring to get into the most selective university they can get into, and, you know, good grades in that university in a major that hopefully provides them some type of employment. So if suddenly like, oh, none of that is really needed, everything can be learned online, you would see, maybe in theory, you'd see like the applications to these universities go way down, to the point that like, maybe the universities would have to like reduce cost, or they'd have to like, you know, create new programs. And I don't think anything. I think it is, if you look at like certainly the most selective universities, admissions is applications only go up. You know, the only thing that goes down is the admission rate. Just as like, so, you know, without some kind of change on the other end, you know, it's just the same system, right? Maybe it's more efficient,
right.
You know, but
I like what you're doing there. I like what you're doing there, because I feel what you're doing is you're trying to identify the problems to solve, right? And so that kind of is getting a little bit towards like, now I've got to admit, in true software defined talk standard, I read a half to 2/3 of this before I ran out of time. I had stuff going on, but I feel like, and again, I think this is a good, if you're pitching for like investment for limited partners and people to fund your fund or to stay with your fund, whatever, I think it's very well done. It's the amount of concision that still transmits useful thoughts that's in this document is amazing. I was trying to write something concise earlier today, and I read this doc and I was like, wow, that is some good work. So
right,
very well executized. But what it kind of doesn't get to, and it kind of sort of gets to this, but what I would like to see in a discussion about how AI is going to help something is first identifying what would be important to help. So you don't want to just broadly say, and I think you've hit on some, you've kind of crystallized it, is like, we don't want to we don't only want to make things more efficient and automated, right? Like it is more efficient to be at home reading Wikipedia and the internet than to have to go down to the ugly and check out books. The book might already be checked out. Like you may not be able to find it. Like it's just much more efficient to do that. And so therefore, through the nature of faster, just like with software, with faster release cycles and more quantity, you can do better, more or less, right? Like you're not bottlenecked by raw material. However, I think, and they kind of allude to this, I think that maybe finding the constraints in the system and solving for those constraints is even more important for gigantic systematic change. And to me, and this is like a parent speaking, I think the biggest constraint is giving a fuck, right?
Right.
And the lack thereof, right? And so like, and they even reference the self-motivated and driven, things like that. And so that's like, if you solved for like, I don't know, at some point in my career, I became very self-motivated and blah, blah, blah. Although I also went to be all like, la-di-da, look at me. I went to a science academy. So I was surrounded by people who were overachievers. And so I've seen the self-motivated people, they're not a problem, right? Like you don't need to worry about them. They'll take care of themselves. But it's more of like this, I don't know if it's a bell curve, but it's the middle of the distribution of people who are just like, oof, as us parents would say, if you just tried, you would be great, right? Like,
right. You need to apply more effort, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so like if you can solve that problem with AI, which I think is maybe possible, and that gets to what you're saying is like, you would want AI to be like adaptive and, several layers above like Dragon's Lair with laser discs and stuff where you can choose your own adventure, but you want it to be like, how can the AI, and it should be able to do this based on my crude understanding of how it works. I never read the Wolfram, opus magnus on how AI works, but like it should like observe how a student is learning, adapt to it, try something new, and keep doing that until it figures out like, maybe if I talk about Pokemon instead of like two trains that are about to run into each other, you could figure out like trigonometry or something. Like, and so that would be cool if it did that, because that solves for another problem that you have in education, it seems, is the you have a supply problem. There's like not enough teachers, because the correct amount of teachers would be 1-to-1 to each student.
Right. For every student, right? Every student has like a personalized tutor. Go on.
And so like, those seem like valid problems to solve.
Right. But I think what you're getting at, and I think this is what I think this paper kind of misses out, is like, there's so much more about like motivation to the student. There's so much more than just the material, because one of the things they talked about here, and they say that, MIT has this thing called open courseware, and it's been downloaded like millions of times. And I went out and looked at it, and it's like, yeah, sure enough, looks like, I don't know, most of MIT's classes, like they're online. All the material is online. So like, again, like, if this were the case though, and like, MIT is obviously a great university, but like, if you're not interested in their curriculum, like there's plenty of open curriculum. So like, whatever, pick your stuff. But like, we still think about college today, most people are going to like schools where they like the professors develop their own curriculum, or, they do their own thing. And it's like, well, like, why isn't it? Why doesn't everybody just pick like calculus 1 is calculus 1? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why not just everyone use the MIT calculus 1 curriculum, right? And it's like, well, there's a reason. There's something that inside of that around, no, people want a personalized experience, or the teachers want flexibility in teaching it, and kids want to go to different ways of teaching it. And, and the motivation, to your point about not everyone is able to just like do it online by themselves. The fact they have to get up and go to a class and like listen and be around other people taking it and develop some friendships and people to talk to. Like there's just a lot to that I think it misses out on, just like, because otherwise, like, everyone would just read, like, why don't we all just download all the MIT curriculum, read it, take the test, and at the end we can all say we got an MIT degree or whatever, or we know a lot from MIT. And it's like, this clearly is not what people do, and I don't think that's happening. I don't feel like there's any movement to doing that, right? So as you kind of go forward, I think that's where I think this is just kind of missing it. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe AI has the ability to personalize it. But the other one I wanted to pick on, just because I've been doing it, they talk about Duolingo, about like, oh, it's 100 million monthly users, which I am one of, right? But like, I've done it now for like, I think 450 days, and it's fun. And I probably have like the most superficial, barely Spanish one, if that, understanding of the Spanish language. Like, to really learn Spanish, right? I'd have to go like spend a lot more time like doing a conversation with someone that speaks Spanish, being corrected, taking tests. It's like, it's not like Duolingo isn't going to like teach you the language. It may get you interested in enough to going to pursue other things. So there's just a lot of stuff in here. I just feel like, again, it's a nice augment, but it isn't changing stuff. And so, to say that AI now, and again, if we just say this too, if we just go back to say LLMs, what are they really good at? They're really good at figuring out the order of tokens. That is what the LLM is good at. Okay. So if we just take this, we have this incredible thing that can order tokens correctly at fantastical speeds. To then say that that thing can now do fundamentally education is like, there's just a giant gulf in between. What about the motivation? What about the motivation of the student, of the parents, of society? And it's just like, so I just feel like there's a lot in here that just really misses out on like all those other things that are sort of like pushed to the side.
Yeah. I somewhat contrary to maybe what we're saying is like, especially after we discussed it, like it does seem like there is enough potential there that if you identified the right product market fit, so to speak, it would be valuable, right? Like just and maybe they get into this more in the part that I didn't read, but I've tried to experiment with this, which I'll get to, but I am intrigued by this idea of a long-lived agent, or let's say friend that you would give a kid, right? And like it would basically be like you could have it explain stuff to you, and then it would kind of keep the context of that, and it would again be adaptive to like questions you asked and what you were doing, and maybe be able to read your email beyond just last week and kind of help you sort things. Like there are some things that would seem simple, but that I think would be better done in an AI. Like if you just asked it, like, what do I need to worry about for next week? That might be nice, right? Like if it just kind of helped you do your, I don't know what the term of art for this kind of stuff is, but I always think about it as like, the skill of doing school, like
Right.
just being I don't know, whatever it is we do in the corporate world is very analogous. And like, that doesn't really get taught, at least in my experience, very effectively. And so like maybe that kind of organizational thing would be good. But just like the issue with that is like I can see that having like a little educational buddy, even a friend that you got to know over years, and this is where you would need like I don't know, a big context window or whatever. I don't care. That's beyond my concern. But like I've tried to go to my kids and be like, do you know about Chat GPT? And they'll be like, yeah, I've heard of that. Like, everything that comes out of my mouth, they think I'm an idiot. And so like, and I'm like, hey, you should try using it. I'll pay for it if you want to use it. And they're like, and so it's sort of like, I feel like if they would just use the thing, there probably is some fun experimenting to do. Just like you could just hold up this piece of paper and like, it can explain how to do this math. And that would be nice. But like, if maybe that's what one of the early startup investments that they need to do here is just gamifying education, making it work out well.
In there. Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be more. You're right. Like I saw the Duolingo stuff, and I'm like, oh, come on, that's a bad example.
Yeah, what, you didn't learn Dutch? You're not fluent in Dutch from Duolingo? Okay, what happened there?
Yeah, and it is like they probably do use some AI stuff, but it's interesting. What would be a good contemplation on that is to be like, so those Duolingo people, I don't think they're dummies, although they might have gone down the let's optimize our numbers thing and gotten rid of all the smart people, and they're just kind of smart people, gotten rid of all the imaginative exploring people, and they're just writing out what they having and squeezing all the juice that they can out of their existing software instead of modernizing it, kind of taking the PE path. But you would think, this AI stuff as we know it has been around for like 3 or 4 years, like before the chat interface came out. Like Duolingo would be one of the people who would take full advantage of this potential. Have they? And if they haven't, what's holding them back from having like Brandon's personal Espanol teacher that like you identified the problem with learning a language, right? Is you can do flashcards till the cows come home. I was trying to think of the Spanish for cow, but I forgot it. That's how effective Duolingo and like 3 years of Spanish is.
Right.
But cabezas, is that right? I don't know. Cabeza de vaca. Anyway, vaca. I'm gonna stop. But you would think that Duolingo would have thought up the problem with learning a foreign language is that you have to just like speak it with someone conversationally and just like do that a lot. And that they could do that. You'd be like, hey, here's your little buddy, your amigo de lingo. And just you can go on a dog walk, wash some dishes, just like talk about like the big game. See what's happening.
Yeah, and maybe they will. Maybe they'll eventually get there. I mean, right now I think they're limited to just sort of like if you miss like if you use the wrong tense or persistently get a one word wrong, they'll give you some exercise. Oh, personalized learning, like, and they'll show you like your weak points. It's like, oh, like you mean you're trying to say son, but you're saying daughter. So let's do like 15 exercises in a row. And then for all of those that were yelling at your podcast player, the Spanish version of cow was vaca. So there you go. That way I don't want everyone to to write in.
I remember because what they when you take text, I know you don't know this, Brandon. Well, maybe I don't know what they do in IB, but as Matt Ray and I are fond of saying, when you grow up in Texas, you have to take Texas history twice.
You do, yep.
And one of the sections is all about the conquistadors, for worse or whatever. And one of them is cabeza de vaca, which means head of a cow. And see, that's what a teacher would do. To probably ChatGPT could do this, but like
right, to make it a little bit more engaging. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you're trying to like have the kids memorize these 1500s like warlords, like you got to be like, hey, that means head of a cow. How wacky is that?
Crazy is that? Well, we should maybe leave it. Let's leave. We've picked apart a lot of the things in the survey. I do think the place where they're 100% right, and the quote they have here is quote, AI may make the best AI may make this the best time ever to be a self-motivated student. And I think that is a 100% true. And again, like, I think sometimes even the way it says it is like, hey, let's be honest, we're not all self-motivated around every topic. But when you do find yourself motivated around a specific topic, I see this both in myself, my children my son who's in school, and friends. It's like, you can absolutely go become a master in anything, which is awesome. Between the YouTube videos, the online courseware, the ability to try stuff, if you like get an interest in anything, you can become an expert in it, which is awesome. And I just think, that is great. Now, how everyone becomes self-motivated, there's like a huge, like I said before, there's a huge jump. It's like, yeah, once you are in that case, it's awesome. Now, getting everyone to become self-motivated, a human problem, probably not going to be solved in AI anytime soon.
Yeah. And I think after, like I was saying earlier, after discussing this, I can see that this would actually be a good investment space because there are opportunities for huge percentages of improvement in these areas. And it's all highly speculative, but like, we don't really, it's easy for me to have an intuition about the limits of all this AI stuff, but I'm not really certain about what the limits are, if that makes sense, right? So I can imagine things that it wouldn't work well for. However, it's also easy to imagine that like it will just get better. And then to the point that you were just saying, right? Like it is actually really good at like explaining things and being a teacher. So probably it's a good area to do some investment in and things like that. They should maybe they should send me an offer. I can diversify my portfolio, put some cash in there, see what's happening. Well, speaking of things to put cash into, as I mentioned all the time, I love surveys, and so I was looking at a survey recently, the CD Foundation survey done by Slashdata. And I've actually used this survey recently just to kind of report on people using CI/CD. And I just happened to notice that there was a report in their respondents. I'm not going to quote everything word for word, which is very important in surveys. So you should go look at it yourself. But basically, they asked someone for as far as using source code management in the last 12 months. They asked the respondents, like, how many of you have used that, have done that, or rather would say yes to this question. I'll be very nuanced about it. And it looks like it was 30% of respondents last year. Now, when I read that, I feel like source code management is the same as version control, which means checking out. Oh, I even forgot the checking out part. Checking out and checking in your code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would imply to me,
or for everyone else, like the pull push in the Git,
yeah,
in the Git vernacular, right?
I'm sorry, your PRs and whatever, all
Uh-huh.
that nonsense. I don't know what was wrong with the old way, but the new way is fantastic.
Yep.
Anyways, and so that would imply to me that 70% of people are not doing any kind of version control, at least amongst their respondent base, which seems
Impossible. It seems
troubling.
impossible to be true. Like it just
And
I mean, I don't want to say it a lie, but I'm like, there's just no way that's possible. But go on.
And you know, so the demographics, of course, whatever. I tweeted this, and they wrote back, which they wrote back the good stuff. You know, it's a self-selecting sort of thing, self-categorizing, whatever. But it does seem like a weird number to have. And so I asked one of my old survey friends, who I ask when something like this comes up, and they pointed out that the JetBrains survey, and I think this is from 2023, said that 76% of people regularly use a source code collaboration tool, meaning that 24% of people don't regularly check in. And as I realized going over this, check out code. So I don't know where they're getting their code from. Like if you're not checking out, or sorry, what should I be saying? Pushing, which
Pushing,
one?
right? Well, I don't know. I mean, just obviously you could always say like, self-selecting and it's a weird sample, but if you're pulling from a group of IT people and 70% aren't even using source code, like I don't even know like
Now
that just seems, because it just seems on the face of it to be not even something relevant to the majority of IT. Like, listen, I'm all for like the things that get talked about, like oftentimes, especially on podcasts, in other words, like people are way ahead of where the mainstream is, but this is not the case. Like, I don't like, this is not like a revolutionary thing. In fact, it's more, it just gets to the point like you almost have to do this in any, like even like a 2 or 3 person org. You almost have to have some way of doing this. So I just reject everything about it to the point of like where I'm like, fine. The fact that you asked this group of people, it's like, what you should do? Not do this survey with this group of people. Like this is not a valuable piece of data unless you can explain to me like what is going on.
Right. I mean, I think for the type of respondent, it would be great to see it sliced up into other numbers. And then also the Stack Overflow 2022 survey said that only 4.31%, love the precision as always, 4.31% of people do not use version control, which is even more than the JetBrains one. And so interestingly enough, in the Stack Overflow 2023 survey, they were probably like, "Why are we asking about version control?" That's like asking if people drink water, right? Like,
yeah. So, what is the meta takeaway? Like, are all surveys bad, or like I don't know. It's like I don't know what the fact that you get such wildly different responses based on respondents. I don't know. I don't know what to take away from all of that.
I think there's a few things. One, and this is more about how I work with surveys. First of all, if there's something that you want to say, you just cherry pick it from a survey and ignore the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's number one.
Well known. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Number two is, and I mean, I say the rest apply to if you want to accept, if you want to have Q&A in your talk after doing the first. But it's always important to first look at the demographics and like see who the respondents are, like see how many people there are, everything like that. And then also, I think what you want to do is just like look through the survey and kind of, unlike when I kind of used some stuff from the survey earlier, like look at all the other answers and see if the other answers make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one of those things where like, even though you may not, let's say a survey covers 10 different areas, right? And you may be curious about 4 of the areas you don't know anything about. This would be very common in corporate strategy and M&A, right? Where you're not a subject matter expert. And so you're relying on surveys and forecasts to kind of like tell you what good investment opportunities are, maybe like AI and education and universities and things like that. But you want to find a few things that you are an expert on in the survey and see if the results line up with your expectations.
Yeah, it's like a sanity check, right? Does it?
Right. And in general, if the sanity check doesn't pass, then you start all over again in looking at the survey, the verification, the demographics. You see if you can get the raw data for it and start to analyze it on your own. Now, of course, part of that is also looking at other surveys that are similar and seeing what answers they have, as we just did.
Yeah.
And
I like that. So the takeaway really is the demo matters. Like, so like if you see some weird thing, go look at the demographics and then maybe maybe that demographic if that demographic is interesting to you and it may really, kind of reveal something you didn't know about. And if not, that demographic is like, hey, turns out they did it for people working in farms. It's like,
exactly.
Not a big surprise. They're not doing source code management, but not really relevant to
like if the people answering the /data survey were actually more operations people than application developer people, then like sure.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe there is. Okay. Yeah. I like that. All right.
Good. Which I'm not quite sure. I don't think that's necessarily the case, at least as written, but it could be like, that could be an answer. And like, as one final thing, right? So like, I apply those rules to those rules, that kind of heuristic to surveys a lot, where, especially in our space, like I'm basically not interested when it comes to trends and technology usage about what technology companies are doing. It doesn't really matter to me for what I care about, nor what small and maybe even medium-sized businesses are doing. Right. So like if when it comes to like software development and cloud native and infrastructure, I really want to know what companies of like 10,000 or more people are doing.
Right.
And that's about it. Right. So like it's very rare that a survey in our space will break things out by that size, yet let alone by that industry. But I think you see drastically different things when you basically drop the software and technology companies.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, get rid of that part of the demographic, and then you're gonna see radically different results.
Right, and because well, 2 reasons. One, because whether you want to apply all your Wardley maps or your James Waterine value line things, like paying attention and building their own stuff for tech companies is actually part of their strategic advantage. And then 2, they don't buy shit. So I don't want to talk to them.
That's right. They are not your target market for sure.
Yeah. And well, I think there are several other things we went over. I just want to mention very briefly, there was there's a lot of obituaries going around, as y'all covered last week. Apparently DevOps is, I don't know, on a ventilator. I'm not quite sure what the ruling was. I think DevOps, according to the current understanding, is, unfortunately, you encounter this with you and I's and other, our spouse's parents a lot, where they have a shoebox full of medicine that they have to bring out each week and kind of partial out. I think maybe that's the idea of what DevOps is on, according to the current articles,
right?
If not dead. But apparently also DevRel is got a shoebox of medicine that they're partitioning out. And I think there's a like any good DevRel expert, it's a little controversial and shocking, very definitive, but there's a good write-up that you could find if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/475. And I think if you read through it, the DevRel's death as a zero interest rate phenomena. And I hope this is the last of our zero interest rate phenomena based philosophy that we encounter. This was a good one. And I like the Pete Cheswick, like DevOps was a ZERP thing, but like, I think maybe we're done with that. Like we need to blame something else than that. But I think also, if you want to read it, it's also a good overview of like, as a contrast or whatever, what your ideal marketing engines would look like, right? So if you could achieve all the things that this post says DevRel should be doing, that means you've got an 100% A+ #1 marketing engine in place. That can take advantage of stuff. So use that as a template for how you should be doing marketing, and take that back to your Salesforce consultants and be like, why don't I have this? and
I like
see if
it.
they can do that for
Well, I
us.
think there's some good stuff in there. It's probably a topic, not surprisingly. Maybe we'll touch on some more thoughts about that next week. I think we both got more to say on that area.
Especially if we had Matt Ray, DevRel, dilettante, maybe. I don't know. I think he's professionally done it, but I think he's moved. Maybe he was like, I can't be dealing with a shoebox full of medication. I'm out.
I got to move on. I got to get on. So, all right,
I'm gonna hop into this. I'm gonna hop into this red Porsche 911 and zoom out of here.
We'll have more to say on that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of more to say, do we have any bureaucracy for this episode?
Just wanted to thank Patrick who wrote in, and I sent him some stickers out in San Jose. Of course, if you would like a sticker, all you have to do is email your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
I don't think I had the chance to mention this, but when I was at DevOps Days Amsterdam, someone came up to me, and I don't think we exchanged names, but he said that he was a big listener, and he showed me the sticker that he had on his laptop.
So, I love it. Love it. Well, thank you to anonymous listeners at DevOps Days Amsterdam. Love it.
That's right. Yeah, it was good stuff. Well, there's several conferences coming up that I think you might be interested. But first, it's an online conference. Now they used to call this a webinar, and they still do. But I'm going to call it a short format online free conference. Is what I'm gonna call it. And I'm gonna be going over, speaking of surveys, our State of Cloud Native survey, which was previously our State of Kubernetes survey. We've renamed it to widen the scope. Why do we do that? Well, you should tune in July 24th, 2024, to check out why we renamed it, what the findings are in that survey. I'm going to be doing it with two of my my good buddies here at work, Rita and Danielle. And we're going to be going over the findings of the State of Cloud Native Survey 2024. And you'll be able to watch it on July 24th. If you want to register for that, which is free, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/475. Now, after you've done that and created 5 additional accounts to register for it so that we get some good reports and watched it 10 times on each account.
Right. Let it autoplay overnight on your computer.
Sure. Yeah. There's other things you might be interested in. There's DevOps Days Birmingham, August 19th to 21st on 2024 or in. I'll be at DevOps Days Antwerp. It's the 15th anniversary of the whole DevOps Days phenomena. That's September 4th and 5th. Also, there is Spring One VMware Explorer US. We have Spring One embedded inside VMware Explorer. That's August 26th to 29th. Now, recent development. If you can't attend in person, we're going to be broadcasting all of the Spring One stuff online for free, right? We don't have like Stripe integration or something. so you have to pay for it. You can watch it all for free. Also, I'll be at SRE Day London 2024. This is all in 2024, September 19th and 20th. And if you want to show up there, I went there last year. My daughter wore the t-shirt that I got from there last year this morning. Now, Brandon, side note, do you bring back conference t-shirts, and does your son then wear them?
Not at this age, I think, for the most part, unless they're really, unless there's something really good. It used to be I'd bring back just like all the weird, Chotsky stuff in elementary school, and like that was always kind of novel. Shirts though, unless there's something great about the shirt, probably not.
Yeah. Well, my as my dad used to say, my middle daughter really enjoys that stuff.
But she's 10. Yeah, I think she's on the edge. Well, I'm gonna check back with you in 3 years.
No, that part's cool, but I got a little bit of a talking to from the CFO of the family about how this is not cool. So I might have to stop bringing those shirts in. I don't know, whatever.
That's sad. Well,
anyways, if you want to get one of those shirts and go to it, you can get 20% off registering with the code SRE20day. You can guess why. And with that, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this episode?
Well, first, I'm going to recommend, if you see Coté at any of these conferences he just went through, you should ask him for a sticker. And if he doesn't have a sticker, email me and let me know, because that way I want to, we can give Coté a hard time. So that's job one for everyone attending any of those events. My recommendation this week is, I'm kind of the last to get on the bandwagon here, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. Tailscale. Coté, have you used this VPN?
I have.
And I'll tell you, I'll just give you my experience. So for the one other person that maybe thinks like me that listens to this podcast, I know it has been sold as really super easy VPN. what I took that to mean before doing anything was just like, oh, they've made the wizards easy to set up, but you still have to get in there and like muck around with all the network stuff and do all the, the outbound, inbound routes. And I just like, it's like one of these tasks, like I just never really want to do it. I know every time, because it just goes back to like learning how to got to get on ChatGPT and get educated. Completely wrong about what this is. This is a VPN that literally takes, I don't know, 10 to 20 seconds to set up once you just download this little agent on and it supports like virtually everything that I could think of. Your Mac, your Apple TV, the Apple TV stuff, miracle integration, right? Synology, Windows, I think Raspberry Pi, I don't have that. But like and it's so it's been fantastic. It's super easy to like create yourself a little VPN. That way you can get access to your wherever you are, get access to maybe your servers located somewhere else. Great for remote support if you're helping out with like maybe a loved one that lives far away that doesn't, isn't so tech savvy. And then of course, while they will never say it this explicitly, this is the exit node functionality where you can just make your little Apple TV, be like, oh, make this my exit node so I can just watch all of my streaming services as if I am located at my home location. I mean, fantastic. Like, finally, like, yeah, I want everything to be just like it is at home with no restrictions. So I think they usually say something like, oh, well, maybe you're interacting with your banking system and you want to look like you're at home, which is a very valid use case. But let's be real. Like, I want to stream no matter where I am in the world. I want the streaming services that I pay for in my house available to me.
Okay.
This is the number one use case that cannot be discussed in major tail scale marketing. So love it.
Okay. This is answering a lot of questions. Now, I would save this for an after show thing, but whatever. Is I have used Tailscale and I recognize the what would you call it? Like you're watching people pole vault and you're like, I can see that is amazing and it's highly skilled and technical, but it's not for me. Right? Like I don't understand what's so like I've used Tailscale and I couldn't figure out why I would need this. Maybe if I had a home lab and I wanted to go back to the home lab while I'm out like trying to sell some stuff. But I think as always, piracy is what you want. Or I shouldn't say piracy.
I don't think it's piracy.
I would say sane regional IP management is what you're going for, right? I can see now the next layer in this, Brandon, is I'm assuming you can also asynchronously, that is bidirectionally, have other people in different countries join your network, or you can join their network.
Absolutely. So hypothetically, someone lives in Austin, another person lives in the Netherlands, right? They on using their, maybe they have Apple TV. I say they on theirs, they installed Tailscale and they joined the network and they set up their Apple TV as an exit node, as well as I set up my Apple TV as an exit node. And then we're all on the same network. And then it's like, just by happenstance, if like there are things that are only on in the Netherlands that I want to watch being in Austin, I just pick my exit node at this hypothetical place in the Netherlands and vice versa. Those people in the Netherlands could hypothetically, be watching TV just like they could get it in Austin, Texas.
And then you could put your exit node like on your access point or your router so that your entire house like goes through an exit node.
Yeah, it's even simpler though. I'm just saying, keep it simple. Like on your Apple TV, which is probably always on, you just leave your Apple TV there. Just go in there and the Tailscale app, make it an exit node, done.
Oh, they've got an app. Okay, sure.
Yeah, you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to do any of this like router, configuration. I mean, of course you can do all that stuff, but I'm just like, this is like magically simple, right? Now, of course, maybe a use case would be like, well, when I access my bank account in the United States, I need to look like I'm living in the United States. And when I'm doing Netherlands EU transactions, it's important for me to be in the EU. That would be the use case that they would explain in depth. But I think there's plenty of other good use cases there too.
Okay. Last question. And I'm also stalling so I can think of a recommendation. But last question is, so there must be like groups of people who are like, let me add you to my Tailscale, like this reciprocal reciprocal like sharing of stuff.
I would assume so. Yes.
So that you have geographic dispersal. And this is
Yeah.
probably like in a WhatsApp group or a Discord group where
I'm
you
sure.
just like,
Right. Yeah.
you've got a group of, let's say, 5 to 30 people who are just like, they all can go on someone else's network
Yeah.
and therefore select their exit points. Huh. Well, I did need to download the PDF of the benefits for my American Airlines executive credit card. And I kept trying to download it. And I think I might have encountered a geographic problem because it kept telling me that there was some problem. So
maybe my final pitch, like this isn't an ad for Tailscale, but I guess it is. But like the final pitch, because you were kind of getting at it before. It's like, well, do I really need it? It's like, it's sort of effort to utility. The effort to set this up, and this is where I really messed up. Like I thought the effort was going to be like 15, 30 minutes, maybe an hour of trying to figure out all this stuff to work. And I just don't want
I remember that.
I didn't want to like even mess with it. But it's like, no, we're talking for like, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds to download this thing, especially on the fiber, maybe 1 second to download the thing and set it up. It's just like, oh, well, now I got an exit node at home. And it's just like, I don't even know. It's just sort of like a fail safe. I don't know why I'll need it, but like if I need to look like I'm at home or I need to access something there, it's there. I got it. You know what I mean? And it was only a few minutes of effort. So there's a high, like low effort, if you will, high potential that you could need it. So why not just do the work, right?
And it's basically free, right?
Yes, it is free. Not basically. I mean, free for the stuff we're talking about. And then, of course, their lead gen, I think, is pretty simple. It's like, well, if you're in a corporation and you actually did need to like access all your servers and your data centers, it's like, this is a really natural extension to like, why don't we just do this instead of like setting up, all the more complicated VPN stuff. Now, I would like, because there's a lot of smart people in the Slack or in email. You can email us at questions@softwarefindtalk.com. If there is some type of thing, limitation, or more importantly, like I'm now open to some like security thing that I'm not thinking of, please email us or put it in the Slack.
Oh, that would be good to know.
Like, oh, actually, you didn't realize this, but you're actually made a huge mistake. And tell me why, because I don't want to be naive around it, because it is so simple that I'm like, love it. I see nothing but love.
I feel like in the hypothetical scenario we were going over, you would need to have a very high trust relationship with people that you allowed to use you as an exit node, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I mean, again, hypothetically, like if this exists, and like I can't imagine other people would ever do this, but like in like kind of like extended family networks where maybe people are like generous with passwords, right? We're like, oh, I've got this service and you got this service. Why don't we just like share those credentials? Like that's sort of the gateway to this. It's like, well, what we could also do, because we're in this kind of like extended family high trust areas, like why don't you just put Tailscale over there, and then now I got another few options, right? So I think that's what you would want to do. Like, do I think everyone should go out and like join the random WhatsApp group to like throw up a random node and then get access? Probably not the best. That's probably a little shady, but there's lots of other stuff to do.
I like that. Well, my recommendation is this new book called Moonbound by Robin Sloan, who wrote Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore and sourdough and all these things. And his writing style is I guess it's unique. He has he's got a good voice. It's what is it? It has almost like the cutesy adorableness of anime without all the like cutesy adorable annoyance of anime. So like somehow he Americanizes all of that and brings it in. It's comfortable. It's there's a Danish word for it and a Dutch word for it. It's comfy basically. And I haven't finished this book, but it's pretty wild in the premise. I'm just going to lay out the beginning premise just to get people interested. The idea is sometime in the future, there's like this sort of micro fungus thing that people infect themselves with in a symbiotic relationship. And it's almost like an AI agent. Like it's like this eternally living agent that goes from person to person as they die and brings their history and talks with them.
Oh,
and this fungus thing finds itself locked. The last person it was in crash landed on some planet, and it wakes up or it becomes more sentient at some point, and more conscious. And then it goes into this boy and it calculates that it's basically been trapped for like 10,000 years. And then an exciting plot unfolds. And it doesn't have, so far, there's no space carpets or any of that kind of bullshit. But like, it's just very simple Robert Sloan style narrative and stories, things like that. But it's fun to read, just if only to see what happens next. So Moonbound, check it out. It's worth reading. Speaking of things that are worth listening to, if you wanted to make a transcript, you could read it as well. But you've listened to another episode of Software Defined Talk. You can see the show notes for things we talked about, conferences, that webinar that you should sign up for, the State of Cloud Native Survey, which is going to be broadcast, which is to say you can see it on July 24th, 2024. If you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/475, you can find all those links. Also, how to join our Slack channel to discuss things. Lots of links we share in that group. I don't know, stuff. But enjoy, having your time here and tell your friends about it, spread the word. And also, Brandon's now a regular on the Cloudcast, and it was a great episode that he had. I know you recommended it last week, but if you hadn't listened to it yet, you should go listen to that again. Any episode he's on, always nice. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Well done, Coté. I don't know. I think I might have to check out Moonbound. That sounds sufficiently weird. I think I'm gonna see if that's available in audiobook format.
It probably is. Yeah,
better be. So, all right. Well, thanks for everyone that was watching this week. I see Brian and Systems Guy and a bunch of other good names. It's always exciting. Well, Coté, as we get out and as we get out of wrap this up, that's what I was trying to say there. And you get ready to watch your football match. Will you be having any specific snacks? Is there? Will you be either preparing anything? Is there any traditional Dutch food that you could eat with while watching the soccer match?
Let's see. We could eat fries. Kim made tacos, which is not traditional, but I have been eating from the Ploosh grocery store. I have some cheese cubes.
Okay.
Old cheese, as it's called. And so that would be traditional.
Okay.
But yeah,
cheese is the preferred snack to go with the Dutch soccer.
That's right. Any cheese you want, as long as it's Gouda or Gouda, as we would say.
All right. Well, good. Well, I wish the Netherlands well tonight. I hope they do well. I hope to see you in a orange soccer jersey next week. We'll have to see if we can get you one. I don't know how we'll do that, but
I could just go down the street and buy one. They have them at the grocery store.
That's true. I guess you could. That would be that easy. But I almost feel like we need, maybe if there's a Dutch fan out there, like a super fan that lives in Amsterdam, maybe they could hook you up and give you one. And if you do, you have to commit to wearing it on the show. That way people watch the YouTube video and you'll blend into our nice, beautiful orange background we have here as well. So
yes, that's right.
All right. Well, good luck, Netherlands. I would, I try to do a Netherlands chant, but I don't know any Dutch or any of the words. So I'll just, watch like everyone else on the show, and hopefully, maybe next time we'll try to learn one that we can say. So
they have some song that people like that. Apparently, the lyrics are something like, "We're having so much fun and partying that we're blowing the roof off." I think is.
I do like. I enjoy when the big group sings. It's just, I don't know, man, there's something electric about just watching it. So I've seen the Dutch, I know of course I just like the sounds, but I have no idea what they're saying. So maybe
they don't really do that in American sports, do they?
Not
a
really.
big synchronized street party.
It's not the same. Yeah, we don't quite have that. So I wish we did, but we don't. So yeah. So everyone watch the soccer match tonight and enjoy whatever team you're cheering for. Obviously we have lots of friends in the English, right? They're very tortured though. They're always tortured by their losses. So that's always, you have that in your favor, right? It's like the Dutch, I think the losses roll off. We did our best, move on. I think the English though, they're really tortured by their losses. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for everyone hanging in here. We'll probably stream this time, probably a little bit earlier next week as well. So keep your eye on the Twitch or the YouTube, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.
Bye.